In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new Rainbow Loom Unity bracelet. So what you will need is 1 or 2 looms. I'll be showing it on just one loom today. And you want to have your loom set up in a rectangular shape so that all the pins are in line with one another. And you want to have the arrows facing away from you. And you need to choose your colors. You will need 65 bands for the main color of the bracelet. And then if you're using 2 different colors, you will need 12 bands of each of these colors. So we're only going to be working with 2 rows of the loom, the center row and then the row to the right. So I'm going to start with my first color, which I have sort of like an orangish coral color. I'm going to be starting on the end of the loom on this right hand row, and I'm going to place it up diagonally. And then I'm just going to work my way up the loom in a zigzag pattern, always sticking with this same color. So they're just going to go one right after the other, back and forth. And as you're putting these on, you want to be pushing them down, because we're going to be adding more on top of here. So you want to have them at the bottom of the pins, and we're going all the way to the end. And then you want to go back to the start, again with the arrows facing away from you. And now we're just going to cross over all of that with the other color. So you can keep this all one color if you wanted, or you can choose more than 2 colors. I think it looks cool with the 2 colors because they keep crossing each other. So again, you want to be pushing these down, and as you put them on, if you try to keep them straight and not get too twisted, it will look neater in the end. So again, we're going all the way to the top of the loom. And again, you want to push these down. You can go back down through and make sure they're all down to the bottom. And then we'll be back at the start here again with the arrows still facing away from you. And then you want to put the main color on. So for this part, you're going to be taking 2 bands at once. So for the first band placement, it's going to go from the center and out to the next row. And then again, you're going to be taking 2 bands at once. And we're just going to work our way up both of these rows, always with 2 bands. So I'm just going to alternate back and forth between the rows, just going forward. And so I will fast forward here. And you want to go all the way to the very end in both of the rows. And then finally you want to take your last set of bands and connect the 2 rows together. And again, you want all this to be pushed down because we still have to add cap bands. And so in order to do that, what we're going to do is take 1 single band and double it. I'm going to place it on my hook, twist, put it back on, and I'm just going to place it from that center row down to the row here on the right. And then I'm just going to work my way back, again doubling all of these bands and placing them right on the top. And this is the last one I'm going to put on. I'm not going to do one on the end. And now we're going to turn the loom around so that the arrows are now facing towards you. You have one more band that you're going to put on. It's going to be a cap band that is doubled, and it's going to go on the outside edge here on the end. It's going to just go right on the top. And so then it's time to start looping the bands. So you can see on this end pin, this is where we're going to start. There are 2 bands on top, that's the cap band, and then the next 2 bands go out to this middle row, and then the next 2 bands move forward, and then on this pin there's just one more band. So what you're going to do is take your hook and go down through this middle, push back on these top 2 bands, grab these next 2 bands, hold that cap band in place, pull this out and move it over. Now you're going back down through, pushing back on these top 2 bands, and this time we're grabbing the next 2 bands. Again, hold that in place, move it out and bring it forward. And then finally we're going back down through, getting this last band and moving that forward. So now I'm just going to work my way up this one side of the loom. So on all of these pins there is a cap band that is doubled. So there's going to be 2 bands. You want to make sure you're putting your hook down through the middle and having those 2 bands behind your hook, pushing back on them. And now you want to grab the top 2 bands, the white bands or whatever color you used for your main color. Pull them out, release them, and move them forward. And now on all of the rest of these pins you're going to have 2 bands on the same pin, and they are going to be the same color. So you just want to make sure you're going down through, pushing back on the cap bands, pushing back on that top band of that color, and grabbing just that very bottom one, pulling it out and moving that forward as well. So again, on this next one we're going down through the middle, pushing back on the cap bands, grabbing the next 2 bands and moving them ahead, going back down through, pushing back, and this time you shouldn't have to push back too much on this upper band because it sort of doesn't really wrap around the pin, so it shouldn't be that hard. You're grabbing that bottom one and moving it forward. Moving up, you're pushing back on the cap bands, getting the next 2 white bands here, moving them ahead, going back down through, pushing back, grabbing just that bottom band and pulling that out and through. Just be careful as you're getting this one, since it's only a single band, it's going to be weaker than if you're grabbing 2 at once. So be careful, you don't want to have those snap on you, so I would just gingerly pull on that. So push back on the 2 cap bands, grab the next set of bands, pull it forward. Again, back down through, pushing back, just grabbing that very bottom band and carefully moving that forward. Again, push back, grabbing the 2 white and forward, back down, grabbing this bottom green and moving it forward. Again, getting the white, going back now for the bottom band. Now going back down through, making sure that cap band is behind your hook, getting the 2 white, and back down for the bottom green. And again, just repeating. Now the bottom. And now the 2 white. And back down through, grabbing this bottom green. Pushing back. We're back to the white. We're almost to the end here. Go back down through and grab this bottom. Pushing back, now we have the 2 white. Moving forward and back down through for that green. And now from here we want the bands to move into the center. So there's no cap band here, you're just going down through and getting these 2 white to move over, and then going back down through you have just 1 single band, and that's going to come over as well. And now we're going to go back to the start, again with the arrows facing towards you. And now I'm going to repeat the same thing for the center row. On this pin here, there are going to be 4 bands on top that we need to get our hook to push back. And then the next 2 bands are white. We're going to grab them. Again, hold this in place with your thumb or it will likely come off. And move this ahead and then go back down through for that very bottom band. And again, move that forward. And now on this next pin, we're going down through, pushing back on the cap bands. You're grabbing those next 2 white, pulling them out and moving them straight ahead. And now going back down through for that bottom band and moving it up. Again, you're always making sure you're going through the middle and that those cap bands are behind your hook. Grabbing the next 2 white bands and moving them up, and then going back down through for that bottom green here. And again, repeating. And now back down for the bottom. Pushing back and getting the 2 white. They're not always really easy to separate. Sometimes they give you a little trouble. Now the bottom green. Again, the top 2. And going back for the bottom. Again. Going back down through and getting the green. I could fast forward through this, but I just don't want anybody to get messed up if I do that. So going back down through, push back on the cap bands, and we're getting the 2 white bands. And now I need to go grab that bottom coral band. Again. And then back down for the bottom. And now the top 2. Pushing back and just getting that bottom. We're almost at the end here. You want the 2 white. Now the bottom green. And again, pushing back. Getting the 2 white. And finally this bottom. And we're done. So now what you want to do is on this last pin that we just finished on in the center, you want to take your hook, go down through and push it out to the side, Now you're going to take another band and you're going to carefully, I always twist it and pull it up through, and then get the loose end on your hook here. And you always want to make sure that this stays on your hook. You can put your finger or thumb on it to keep it in place. And we're going to carefully remove all of this here. Now you are going to have one band that still remains on the bottom of this, so it will tend to want to get caught up and stay on there. So just be careful that as you're going down through, you're pulling it and you're releasing it, and that all of the bands are coming off the pins, and that one's not getting hung up because it'll get it all stretched out. And then here is what it's going to look like. Again, keep hold of this. I made the mistake of letting it come off in my last video. And you can stretch it out and get it more in shape here. So you can see how they cross over one another. And then if you flip to the other side, all the colors are on top of the white here. And now you're going to need to make an extension. So in order to do this, you want to take your loom and have the arrows facing away from you. So I'm going to start at the end, and I'm just going to work my way up here, the side of the loom, just one right after the other. I'm going to do 4 bands. Depending on the size of your wrist, you can decide how many bands you think you'll need. Now I'm going to take these 2 bands that are on here and put them on the top of this pin and stretch it out. And now I can reach down inside and grab this band and just pull back. I'm going to do that for all of the bands till I get to the end here. And then I want to take my hook, go down in the middle, get these 2 bands on, and pull this off. And then I'm going to take a clip. I have an S clip here. I'm going to just slide it through. And now I'm going to go to the other end, put my hook through some of the bands on the end here. I'm going to take another band, slide that through, place the loose end on, so now I have both loose ends. I'm going to put this aside again. And now I have 4 more bands I'm going to do for the other side of the extension. I'm going to just repeat this. Again, the arrows need to be facing away from you. And now I'm taking these 2 bands again, putting them on the pin. Just going to stretch it out here so it's easy to grab. In the middle, we're grabbing this band and pulling it back. Just work your way back here. Again, reach down through. Make sure it's through both bands. Pull this off. And now you can loop the other side here, these 2 bands through the other side. And then your bracelet is complete. And I'll show you another bracelet that I made using this same pattern. This one was made using the length of 2 looms, so I will show you how long it is. It should be able to fit around your wrist without having any extensions on it. So this is the Unity bracelet. Hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial. You can always leave me comments on YouTube or Facebook, and feel free to send me pictures of your creations. I would love to see what you've made. Thank you!